Yeah, thanks. I'm good. I'm just a little, I'm a little more road weary, but I'm ready to talk movies again with you guys. It seems like it's been a long time, even though I think it's only been a week. I don't know. Seems longer though. We had the we had the Oscars in between. We've seen some movies in between, so it seems like a while. Hmm. Hmm.
I'm right there with Jim. It feels like it's been much longer than 7 days. In fact, it feels like it's been 9. Uh, we're a little bit staggered this week for those listening live. That's what I'm alluding to. No, you're right though. This is like a really interesting time of year because we just came off of the Oscars. We're getting ready to go into the first of our festival seasons. Work travels and crossing our fingers, hoping that the January/February slate of films gets better. This is a really weird time for us each year, right?
Oh yeah, and for film and for films too, because we just got done with all the end of the year awards. Last year's awards and celebrating those movies, and the focus is still on 2019 movies, and it's kind of like the spotlight hasn't coalesced onto this year's movies yet. Although we're now almost a month and a half into the year, and there's some movies out there. I will say that there's some movies out there to be seen, or not, or whatever. Yeah. Hmm. Oh. Oh no! Shit. Well, we know that
Uh,
Skype is working.
yeah, I just did a playback too, and I can hear Jim and I can hear myself, but I don't hear you in the feed.
Fix it in post. You'll just have to put your parts in post.
Oh, wait. Now all of a sudden my mic is working. I don't know what happened. I have no clue.
Let me listen live.
Yeah, see if it's working now.
All right, Kevin saying good,
Okay.
and I hear you too in the playback.
All right. Awesome. Well, guess what? We're going to re-record our intro.
Hey,
The joys of doing it
let's
live.
we really need one of those little technical difficulty cards,
We do.
just like a picture of like Jim holding like a hammer and shrugging next to like an antenna.
All right. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for letting us know that that was happening. We appreciate that. We are gonna
Glad he told us now.
Yeah.
Imagine if we gotten to the end of the show.
Right. All right. So we're gonna back up and we're gonna start recording from the beginning. At least we're only a couple minutes in. I know, right? Just call me Max. Anyway, okay. So I'm gonna bring us back, and we'll start all over again in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, all. Welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by some of my favorite husky, hairy, huggable homos to talk about film. And we are indeed going to be talking about film this week because we're going to be given some thoughts on the new Birds of Prey movie, the follow-up to DC's Suicide Squad. Did Birds of Prey take off, or did it bomb like Suicide Squad? We'll weigh in with our thoughts. Also, the Oscars were a few days ago, and even though our favorite award show is the MBP Awards, which were just last week, maybe we're a little bit biased. We're going to talk a little bit about the Oscars and some personal highlights. So we're excited to jump into all of that. But before we do, let me introduce you to my fantabulous co-hosts. Jim Pugliafico is with us, and babe, you've been gone on a trip. You're leaving on another trip. I think I've got you for like a whole day. Welcome home. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's good to be home. It's good to be back in the saddle, doing another episode after our awards, MBP awards, which was so much fun, and we covered a ton of movies. And the Oscars doesn't, even a good Oscars like this year, doesn't hold a candle to the MBP awards. So, so I'm excited to be back, and we're going to talk a new movie and talk about the Oscars tonight. I can't wait.
Well, glad you're here. Glad you're able to join us. We attempted this a couple days ago, and the hotel Wi-Fi was not so great while you were on the road.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but thank you, listeners, for bearing with us and tuning in a couple days later. Will Lindis is also here, and Will, it's been an extra 2 days since we've gotten to chat with you. How the hell are you doing?
Really good. I'm glad that Jim got one of those 3-seater saddles so that I can get in that saddle with you. This is such an interesting time for film in general. I know we've been kind of bantering a little bit back and forth about it, but just like between awards that are looking back at last year, and now we're looking at a 2020 film that is part of this year's slate. And we've got a film festival coming up for us. I'm really excited about what's on the horizon. I'm also sort of in this like weird spot with film myself, just because it's like, I don't know. It feels like we're both like in the past and in the future at the same time.
You know what helps me to get through this like no man's land of film releases right now between the best of 2019 and the best yet to come for 2020?
Harley Quinn. That's what.
Actually, no, not Harley Quinn. I was going to say South by Southwest Film Festival, which is coming up in a few weeks. Yes. Will, we are so freaking excited to see you and Wiggles and the Pups and a whole shit ton of movies.
This will be your first time staying at the new Casa de Will and Scott. I think we had just closed on the house when you guys were last visiting. So
that's right.
You guys, I think, had moved in some of the living room furniture. We only saw a little.
Yeah, we got to see it as you were moving in. Right.
Yeah, it was that. So it's almost like the year anniversary of that move in, which is exciting, but. Man, for me, this whole like in between time has been spent on a lot of like rewatches and things like that. I just got done watching a film that I bet you that I can say 3 words and you'll know the exact title of it. What are they? Because it's one Heart to Heart.
Aww, I love it.
Brad knows what it is. Jim's giving like
I need more. I need
too hard.
Too hard. It was Skeleton Twins.
Oh, the Skeleton Twins. Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, that movie has always like got a special place in my heart because I think all 3 of us like latched on to that little film at the same time.
I gotta watch that movie again. It's so good.
Yeah,
on the Hulu.
Yeah. Kevin Ryan is in the chat. He's also downstairs right now. He's staying with us for a couple weeks. Kevin, I don't know if you've seen Skeleton Twins, but I think it's a movie you'd really dig. So remind me. And while Jim's on his next business trip and we're, stiff upper-lipped awaiting his return, Kevin, maybe we'll check that movie out. I'd love to know your thoughts.
Oh yeah, sure. Leave me right out. I mean, sure. I like it.
Look, if you want to rewatch a movie with us in the short time that we have you, that would be wonderful. Let's do it.
I know, but I fair enough. I'm not much of a movie rewatcher, but that's one that if you wanted to rewatch,
really, well,
It was in my Hulu today, and it was just like, oh, here's a movie you might want to watch. And I was like, damn, Hulu, you're right.
All right. Well, then we're rewatching that motherfucker. So it's going to happen before you leave, babe. If we can fit it in either tonight or tomorrow in between haircuts and softball and, work and everything else.
And Valentine's Day celebration.
Yeah, and happy Valentine's Day to all those who celebrate. We don't have video. You can't see us making the heart-shaped symbols, but we totally are. Yes.
We're going heart to heart with you right now, listeners.
Yes.
I'm putting a heart on the camera.
I've got a heart on right now.
And we're back.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about Birds of Prey here in just a little bit. But before we do, let's chat a little bit about the Oscars, my bear bros. Wow. My bear dudes. None of that sounds good. So forget I said that at all. Guys, let's talk about the Oscars. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I think we said we're not going to do just a standard rundown the categories, right? No. We're gonna talk about some of the things that kind of stuck out for us. Maybe some more of the moments that kind of made this Oscars, in some people's minds very great. Maybe in some people's mind, it's just another award show. I don't know.
Renee Zellweger's terrible speech.
Well, there were some speeches for sure.
Hold on, I've got 400 names I need to rattle off. Okay, I'd like to thank blah 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 blah.
Well, yeah. Well, right. Renee Zellweger, who won for Best Actress in a Leading Role.
And deservedly so. She was amazing in Judy.
For her performance as Judy Garland in the movie Judy, and which I was 100% behind. It was probably the one kind of lock for an Oscar that night going in. I think most people who paid attention during the year probably had that as number one with a bullet on their Oscar pool. But yeah, the speech was. I loved Renee and I loved her performance. Not taking anything away from that. It's just that her speech was a bit ragged and kind of unfocused and a little bit all over the place for me. But hey, good on her for winning. It's her second one, I think. So, but it wasn't the only weird speech of the night, though.
This was a really interesting year for the Oscars because this was a year where I was ready to join. I'd been one of the last holdouts on sort of like the hashtag fuck the Oscars train, thinking like, no, there's still value in them as a marketing device, as just
absolutely,
as sort of like a bellwether for like trends that are being supported within the industry. And I was sort of like on board with just being done with it. And then we get a really good Oscars year. This was a year where, there were some faults. I think that one of the things that I struggled with most was that the all four of the actor awards, to your point about it being sort of like the Zellweger one being a lock, all four of the acting categories had been kind of like sewed up like in November. And it was just sort of like counting down the time to get here. So there were no surprises in the acting categories. But there were a couple of really, really big surprises in some other categories that absolutely made my night. Parasite getting Best Picture and Bong Joon-ho getting Best Director. These were not expected, and they were 100% welcome. Taika Waititi's adapted screenplay Oscar was a very, very, very well-deserved one because that film had to juggle so many damn things. Less welcome, though, I think, would be a song from 2002's 8 Mile getting a random play. Does anyone know what the fuck was up with Eminem performing Lose Yourself?
I have no idea, but I kind of like the energy from it. I mean, if you looked at the audience, the live audience, I mean, they were all up in, most of them, except for the ones who were clueless, were like, most of them were up and were very much into the performance. Why it fit in this Oscars? I have no idea.
Look,
but there it was, and I
enjoyed
it.
Gave me Janelle Monáe like dancing and her like glittery hoodie, and that's all I care about.
No, are you talking about the opening one? I'm sorry.
I'm talking about the 8 Mile Eminem
during Lose Yourself, like the audience reaction shots.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like Martin Scorsese just sitting there, like, what the fuck am I looking at? And like those were so good.
They really were. Yeah.
But hey, what about a bearded Eminem?
Eh,
No, any bear friends?
Nope.
Get any?
I'd kind of leave it in the what about it category.
Okay,
Like
well.
it did not do it for me.
I will
but
say
different strokes.
of the rap performances that we saw that night, I still liked his the best.
Listen,
musically.
when you say bearded Eminem, I think of an Eminem that has mold growing on it. So
you think those
Gross.
M&Ms, like those M&Ms that in that commercial at the movie theater before
Yes.
every screen that we go to that get launched in a rocket?
No, this is an envelope.
Guys, boom. I also was. This is, I think, the second year they've done the no host thing,
Right.
and I think that it helped. This award ceremony still dragged on. Don't get me wrong, but I think not having to sit through a host having to do like antics in between all of the introductions just made it go so much better than it could have. I genuinely liked a lot of what I saw from some of the presenters. And I was so glad that we didn't have I'll just say it, that we didn't have like a Ricky Gervais, like kind of stinking up the place.
Or do you remember, it was several years ago, was it Ellen or somebody, like they had somebody come in like from the street and pass out like popcorn or snacks.
They gave like
remember?
sandwiches to people, and then they brought in some people from a movie theater across the street and kind of paraded them in. And I mean, they're kind of like dud moments, right? Like,
time wasters.
Although
right?
I did really like that epic. Was it Ellen who did the selfie? I forget, but the selfie was awesome.
Yeah.
The selfie was nice because it was such a quick moment, all things considered, right? Like, and its real legs happened
after the show,
kind of on social media and afterwards. Yeah. We got to interact with that selfie while so-and-so is on stage announcing the next award. Like, this was a really, really good year for a diverse set of winners, in that I think coming into the ceremony itself, we were expecting to see, like, I think 1917 was expected to sweep more categories than it did. And we had that sometimes a year where like Lord of the Rings takes like all of the last one takes all of the trophies. And here, even the film that had, I think, the most wins, which was Parasite, had only 4 of the wins overall. 1917 had 3. Joker's in there with 1. Rocket Man's in there with 1. Little Women's in there with 1. Jojo Rabbit's in there with 1. This was spread out a lot more than I think that it had the potential to, and that was nice.
I like to see that. I'd actually like to see them open up the nominations a little bit more. So that some other deserving films can be, and I know it's bucking against history, but I don't know, in my mind I'm like, there's a couple more in here that I would have liked to see at least mentioned in this group. Every year we talk about the snubs, and maybe moving the line and increasing how many nominees you have will only talk about other snubs, but I thought there were some that probably deserved to get at least mentioned,
so
that didn't.
Hamstrat in the chat, hey Hamstrat, says awards for shorts. If you need to make cuts, let it be those. We don't need them. Would you, Jim, sacrifice live action and animated shorts if it meant more nominations for Best Picture, for instance, and more time?
Well, Best Picture already gets like up to 10. I was talking mostly in other categories like director and screenplay and stuff like that. Maybe performances as well. But I don't know about cutting shorts. They don't spend a lot of time on them. So, and there's only 3, right? There's only 3 that they do.
3 categories.
Yeah, there's only 3 that they do. I'm okay with it. And to be honest, I'm not complaining about the length of the I'm just saying I just wish that there were more nominees in the pool of people considered. That doesn't mean it takes time during the you have to announce them during the time, but that's just a few seconds. So I don't know. I don't want to see the short-handed, short-sticked, whatever you want to call it.
It did. So I watched all the shorts this year for all three categories.
Lucky.
And I am in an area where like we just happen to like they play them as like a program. And one of the things that really stood out to me is sort of the average quality of the shorts on almost any given year goes toe to toe, if not sometimes surpasses the average pool of like the best picture candidates or something like that. And I think part of that's because best picture has its like preferential ballot thing, which means that some films kind of rise to the top by being the least offensive. There's that goes into it. Whereas you can get some pretty hard hitting, bold shit in the shorts. Sometimes you get a little bit of like the same stuff here. What I would do, if anything, is, and I think Brad Pitt hit the nail on the head at the beginning of the program. During his speech, he said that there should be a category for stuntman or stunt person. And I 100% agree with that. Like, I would sit through another 5 minutes of show if it means that we could give an extra award to the people that like do these crazy stunts, because they're such a big part of Hollywood and have been for so long. And they don't get included, whereas like makeup and production design do. And those are important. I think those need to be awarded as well. But I would 100%, if I could add one category, it would be stuntman. And if I could add two, it would be a virtual performance. So
Stunt
like voice
person
acting
of the year. Yeah, I think voice acting should be a category too.
Yeah.
And it can be one category, just voice acting performance.
Yeah, you don't need men, women, support.
No, right. No. I think I'd like to see both of those added.
So here's the question.
And again, I'm not.
Here's the question.
Go ahead.
Someone posed this on Twitter, so it's Twitter. Take it for what it's worth. But the comment was that they should do away with best supporting actor, best supporting actress, best actress, and just have best actor and best supporting actor, inclusive of men and women, and have everybody in the same pool. What do you think about that?
That would be interesting. I can't think of an argument why not.
I can.
Okay, go.
So another category that has a blended pool right now is the best director category. And you get to see it very much lopsided towards one thing in particular. I think that you run the risk of seeing some of that with some of the acting performances as well, maybe to a lesser degree, but I think that like if you were to look at looking at this pool of actors and actresses, if you were to say which of Antonio Banderas, Leonardo DiCaprio, Adam Driver, Joaquin Phoenix, Jonathan Pryce, Renee Zellweger, Charlize Theron, Saoirse Ronan, Scarlett Johansson, and Cynthia Erivo get cut, more than likely you get four men and one woman in there, maybe 3 and 2 if you're lucky. But I think that talent pool sort of lopsides. I'm okay with leaving them as separate categories just so that we can celebrate more performances.
You kind of force the focus.
So why not?
Equal it. You force focus, equal focus, I guess.
So why not a best female director and best male director?
I mean, if that's what it takes, because clearly the Oscars has a problem with what goes in the director category itself.
Well, here's my idea. Let's combine them into combined categories, but make the nominations be equal. Like if it's 8, you do 4 and 4, and if it's 10, you do 5 and 5.
But is there a danger of like gender preference happening, even though they're split to be equal? Right? Is there gender bias happening?
You mean in terms of the votes for the win?
Yeah, like, okay, 4 women got nominated too, but like it's always a male that gets the award. Like, is that...
Those types of biases are sort of inherent. I mean, we're all fans of the show Survivor, right? And we see that there is a gender bias in terms of like who is allowed to be like aggressive and who's not there. And I think that probably would play a role in terms of like this industry award to a lesser degree. I do like Hamstrock's idea here, combining sound editing and sound mixing don't need to be split. This year was an exception, but for the last few years, whoever wins editing and also wins mixing, so it becomes sort of like a superfluous reward. This year we did have like one go to Ford versus Ferrari and one go to 1917, which is weird, but I think it's more of a fluke.
Yeah, that's a good idea, though.
I'd merge those. Yeah.
I'd definitely get behind that.
Well, Kevin says, even if only in perception, sexism could become an issue. Jim, to your idea of like a split but equal, you know what I mean, pool of
Nomination pool.
nominations. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe we need a best female director. That almost feels gross to me, though. Like, I don't want to have to split it out, to equalize. I think that's
not
crummy.
that's not the equality we're going for, right? The equality was going for is something more like I'm thinking of. It's just that can we get there is the question, right?
We may be in better shape next year in the director category, only because this one was a bit unfortunate, because you have both Scorsese and Tarantino who, in making films this year, I think they were both good films. But I think even if they weren't, I think they were already probably going to get 2 of those slots, just because they're Scorsese and Tarantino. They don't have films coming out next year, to my knowledge, and I don't think there's anyone else that's in that like auto lock role. Maybe Christopher Nolan. Probably Christopher Nolan. You can already give him a slot just because he's Christopher Nolan. But there might be a little bit more wiggle room for some first-time nominees, which would be female directors.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at somebody could probably, and they've probably already done this. I'm sure there's an article on the internet somewhere. Looked at the movies for release in 2020, looked at the directors, and already picked out like the 6 nominees that are going to be nominated for Best Director, right? And you could look at the, Wes Andersons and, whoever the hell else has a movie coming out next year.
That's part of the problem with the Oscars as a whole, is that, it isn't necessarily a recognition of absolute talent. You do see some exceptions to that. Bong Joon-ho and Parasite rising to the top is that. But as much as anything, it's sort of like both a marketing tool for these films that these studios have already started funneling the money into now for the next year's award ceremony. So you're going to start to see like some pretty predictable pushes there at the end. And, that's just part of the game, I guess.
Well, I know we have a movie to discuss, so we got a big conversation still to come. So maybe we can get some final Oscars thoughts going. Mine would just be, man, hats off to Laura Dern for Marriage Story. Was so happy to see her walk away with Best Supporting Actress. She was a firecracker in that movie, and very, very deserving. So happy to see.
That was a loaded category, by the way. That category might have been the toughest to pick of all of them, I think. You had some amazing, you had some up and coming talent and some talent, there's some established talent that like really flexed their muscles. It was a great category. So, but yeah, it's funny because as they're reading off the names, I'm like, yep, I'd like to see her win. Oh yeah, I'd like to see her win. Oh yeah, I'd like to see her win. And then I wasn't unhappy. And my final thought is this year was different for us. We did not have our normal Oscar party that we usually have. We usually have a big Oscar party. It was just us at home in our underwear watching the Oscars for enjoyment. I didn't even have a ballot. Nope. I didn't even fill out a ballot this year. I'm just like, I just want to kind of enjoy it as it comes and not have a ton of expectation. I didn't go in with like somebody that I was totally standing for, I just wanted to see it play out. And I'm glad I did this year because it was just so rewarding to see, like Will, you said before, how the awards were kind of spread out among, many different films, some surprises, some not so surprises, but I did like to see the quote unquote diversity of how the awards ended up, highlighting some movies that might not have been highlighted in previous years.
Yeah, I didn't do an Oscar party this year. I sat down expecting to have a glass of wine and to yell at the screen like I did last year. This year, even though it was my best year from a ballot perspective, which sucks that I didn't actually compete with anyone because I'm like, damn it, I did really good.
You mean the ballot in your head? You mean
no, I filled one out, but it's not it was just for me. It's not going to a party and doing
Right.
But I didn't turn into a cursing at the screen thing. It turned into just sort of what I wanted the Oscars to be and what I've kind of always wanted them to be, I guess, which is just a celebration of film. This year felt like that for the first time in a few years.
Which is so interesting because ahead of the Oscars, like, you know, everybody on Facebook, like whether it's the Super Bowl, whether it's Game of Thrones, whatever it is, you know, someone has to be like, well, I've never seen a single episode of Game of Thrones. Give me a gold star. And with the Oscars, it's, well, I'm not going to watch the Oscars. The Oscars are stupid. I'm not going to do that. That's dumb. And then, like, a lot of those same people ended up fucking watching the Oscars. And they're like, you know, live tweeting and posting about it while they watch. And then at the end, they comment and they're like, oh my gosh, the Oscars were so great this year. I screen capped a post from a friend who was bitching like that before the Oscars and then commented with it. They didn't like that very much. They deleted my comment, but I don't know. Why does that happen, you think?
That's the age of the hot take, Brad. There, you know, there's a desire out there on social media to have the hot take, to get the looks, to get the clicks, to get the comments. And I think people go outside themselves to do it, unfortunately. So it's gonna happen. It's just the I don't know. I have to remind myself sometimes not to tweet or post some stuff that pop into my head. You know, my snarky side has to be subdued sometimes. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be a little more charitable to those people, only in that it's sort of a weird catch-22, right? Because I think that there's some pretty inherent and glaring issues with the Oscars as a whole, what they mean and how people interact with them, seeing them as an absolute value of quality as opposed to like a bellwether for marketing trends, right? And yet you can't just look away from them, because if you're invested in like film at all, it's like watching a full season of football and then not watching the Super Bowl because your teams aren't in there. You're still going to watch it because it's part of that season. This is the end of movie season. And I think what was interesting this year is that it's not a full course correction. The nominations still have issues. The whole game is still very money driven. And I think it's still okay to be very critical of those things. But it was nice to sort of celebrate, at least on a micro level, some of those areas self-correcting or at least getting a little bit better. And it maybe feels like maybe, just maybe, next year and the year after that will trend the right way as well. Maybe not, but that's the hope.
We'll see. But I bet you dollars to donuts, those same people are going to be bitching next year ahead of the Oscars, and it's going to be a repeat.
Well, maybe, Brad. I don't know. See if the leopard could change his spots.
Either way, even if the Oscars do have their issues, I'm just glad that we get to celebrate film. I'm glad we get to have a Super Bowl of film, even if it is a little bit problematic. So, and I love even more that I get to celebrate it with you guys and talk some of these things through. So that makes me a very happy movie bear.
I mean, honestly, this all gets solved when they just start televising the MBP awards. Because then everyone can just watch that and be done with the others.
Yeah. Fuck that other stuff. I keep trying to tell people on Twitter that this is not your normal. Our stuff is not your normal award show. It's much better.
I mean, we give an award for the hottest on-screen moment. The Oscars don't do that. So, just saying. Yeah. All right. Well,
I don't even think the MTV movie awards do that.
I don't know.
That paragon of movie awards.
All right. Well, Jim, we still got to talk about Birds of Prey. Are we there? Mm-hmm. Are you feeling it? Can we make that flight?
Feeling
it.
Who? Yeah. Okay. Let's go. I was gonna ask who can say the title without looking at their screen.
I can.
Too. But Will, you were first. All right. Go for it.
It's called Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey.
Nope.
Because they changed the studio changed the name of it after the release of the film because they thought the title was too confusing. So yeah, that's the new title of the movie. No shit.
Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey is now the new title?
Yep, sort of like how they did. What was it? Live, Die,
I totally missed
Repeat.
that.
Huh.
That one, you know how that one changed name? Yeah, they changed the name of it. But yeah, it's
Wow,
originally
that's
called
great.
Birds of Prey and the
Fantabulous Emancipation of one
Emancipation
Harley Quinn.
of one Harley Quinn. Yeah.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, on the Cinemark website that we go to for our movie scheduling, it says Harley Quinn: Birds of Prey.
Interesting.
It's right there. But I think IMDb still has the old one.
Yeah, IMDb still has the old one. I think Letterboxd, like it's still up in a lot of old places. But yeah, weird trivia for this movie.
Well, at least they didn't have to redo any effects like cats. Can we just give it that, I guess? All right, listen, we're going to be talking Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey, spoiler-free for probably all of 10 minutes, and then we're going to open things up to spoilers. So if you haven't seen Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey yet, and you don't want to be spoiled, don't worry. We got your back. We'll give you a warning. If you're listening live, we'll drop a warning for you in the chat as well to help you keep abreast of those things. And yeah, let's open it up. Here we go. Our discussion of Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey. I figure if I say the new name of the movie 3 times in a sentence, it'll stick. Kind of like using somebody's name 3 times when you first meet them.
Brad, that's a good idea, Brad.
The question, Brad, is whether the movie will stick. That's
let's talk about that. Did the movie stick? And Will, let's start with you. So just give us like the briefest of setup for this film, if you don't mind, and spoiler free, of course. But I mean, as a follow-up to Suicide Squad, did this do it for you? Did you love it? Did you not love it? What'd you think?
So it's no secret that Suicide Squad, at least to me, not everyone agrees, but at least to me, is one of the worst pieces of shit I've ever had to sit through. Sorry for Stans. So coming into Birds of Prey, I was a little bit confused because I was kind of into the trailers, but I didn't want to watch more of that damn movie. So here we are with Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of one Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey, which follows Harley Quinn in the aftermath of Suicide Squad. She's going through this breakup with Hamista J, her puddin', and she's trying to find her own spot in the world. And of course, in doing so, she comes across the path of a pretty malicious criminal overlord named Roman, the Black Mask. And also across several other women who end up both at odds and working with, in some capacity, her. People like, let's see, Renee Montoya, Black Canary, was it Cassandra Cain, and of course, who did I miss out? The Huntress. Yeah. So I liked it. This was a very fun movie. It had a bit of a second act slump for me. There's sort of like a spot between two scenes. There's a prison scene and then a major scene towards the end of the movie, and kind of the stuff between those two scenes is a little slow. But I liked what Margot Robbie does with Harley Quinn here. I think that it's honestly, it's more fun than what Marvel did with Deadpool for me. I think this is a better version of that. I liked the supporting characters. I wanted a little bit more from some of them. I really liked Ewan McGregor just camping the fuck out of this role as the main villain. I really liked the fights. The fights felt like I think a fair criticism of some superhero movies is that they feel super like isolated on green screen. And I felt like these felt pretty tangible. Like I felt the settings that they were fighting in. I felt like them interacting with their sets probably a lot more than a lot of superhero movies. And I think that just sort of pulled me into the movie. Yeah, not a perfect film. It's not a deep movie, but it doesn't need to be. I wanted something kind of fun, and I got something kind of fun.
All right.
So it's a pretty light recommend, but it's a recommend.
Yeah. Movie Bears podcast, kind of fun.
A light recommend still counts as a recommend. So looks like Will's in the favorable column. Jim, how about for you? Did it work as well for you?
I don't think I'm quite as positive on this movie as Will is. Although I don't think this is a terrible movie. I think Will, I think you hit it on the head. This is a fun movie. It's supposed to be a fun movie. It's a very rowdy kind of movie. You mentioned that it's kind of you think it's a better version of what Marvel did with Deadpool. I was going to say that it's basically a version of Deadpool. It's DC's Deadpool, if you ask me. It's just Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn doing just rowdy, crazy, over the top acting, of course, to make this character Harley Quinn. What I really liked about this movie is I liked some of the supporting performances, and Margot Robbie is fine. This movie felt to me like a series, more than anything than just a series of set pieces, right? Just like, there's this fight scene, there's this, explosion scene, there's this police headquarters scene. It just felt like a series of set pieces that kind of got through this pretty pedestrian kind of a story. Not much really there story-wise. It's just kind of a basic, bad guy trying to get one of the characters, or trying to get the what's the word I'm looking for? The thing that in the movie that you always have to get.
The MacGuffin?
The MacGuffin?
The MacGuffin, yeah.
The Egg MacGuffin?
Egg MacGuffin, nice. But I still had fun with it. This movie certainly didn't put me to sleep. I stayed awake for the whole thing, so that's good. Some of the performances that stand out for me, I always liked Chris Messina. He played Victor Zsasz in this movie. I knew nothing about these characters, but I liked the way that Chris Messina played the character, especially off of Ewan McGregor, he was kind of an aloof, again, over the top, mustache twirly kind of villain. And there was a little bit of homoerotic tension between those two. I don't know if you guys picked it up, but I definitely did.
Oh, they fucked.
The movie didn't do anything with it, but it was there. Like if your gaydar is working at all, there was something going on there. Most of the performing supporting characters, Mary Elizabeth Winstead as the Huntress, I liked. I love Rosie Perez in almost everything she's in as Renee Montoya. So yeah, I had fun with it. I think a lot of people are going to have fun with it. I see all the comments online. This is 100% better than help me out, guys.
Squad?
Suicide Squad, which was really crappy. This is, in my view, way better than Suicide Squad. Any version of Suicide Squad. I like this better as a more entertaining movie. It did make sense to most of a degree. I don't know where I come up with it. It's not a movie made for me, but I still kind of had fun with it, Brad. So take that for what it is.
All right, you got to take a stance. Is it a recommend or not?
I'm going to recommend, because I think most people that aren't me will like this movie.
All right.
Jim, come over here to the yes side. Yep.
Yeah.
Hand in hand, we stand in light support of this film.
All right. That's fair. A barely recommend, it sounds like.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's see. I would agree with both of you. This was a lot better than Suicide Squad. I did have fun with this movie. I don't think it was a great movie, and I don't think it's the most fun movie I'll probably see this year, but it was entertaining enough. Part of my issue with it, I love ensemble cast films sometimes, but I felt like this movie just had too many characters, and it was taking me away from the things that I really wanted to see. Things I really wanted to see: Harley Quinn. Things I really wanted to see: Rosie Perez. Things I wanted to see: Cassandra Cain. I felt like if this movie was like Harley Quinn on one side, Renee on the other side, and Cassandra in the middle, and it was like the three of them in a car, like constantly running from baddies, and it was like encapsulated down to just that trio, I think it would have worked a lot better for me. I mean, I like the Black Canary character. I liked seeing Huntress, but it just felt like there's a lot of like side things happening, and even as a result, not enough fleshing out of those extra characters to really invest me in them. So while it was kind of cool to see him show up, it was almost like didn't get enough of him, and I got too much of him in a way. It sounds like a weird contradiction, but I almost wish this movie didn't go the like Suicide Squad formula of, hey, we need a pack of badass people. It could have just been a small little garlic knot of really cool people, and see what happens. Jim, I totally agree with you. Chris Messina, so great to see him as Victor Zsasz. I did know who Victor Zsasz was coming in. Thank you, Batman Comics and the Arkham games. I would not have ever picked Chris Messina to play Victor Zsasz, but I thought he did a good job with it. He was suitably creepy. The homoeroticism thing was a little weird for me. Representing gay people by like cutting off their faces and wearing them is a little bizarre, but
as villains,
of course, as villains, But that said, we also got, and gosh, is it a spoiler to talk about the sexuality?
It's not.
Okay.
It's not, because yeah.
Okay. So Rosie Perez's character is queer. So I feel like it maybe balances out. I don't know, but I don't know. I'm conflicted about that. I got to be honest.
I thought that was a really good portrayal of a gay relationship. I really liked her character and the way they portrayed.
Yeah, I'm not saying I didn't like her as a queer character. I'm saying, or asking, do you think that like Victor Zsasz, as like a really terrible person, also gay, is balanced out by the Renee character, who's like a paragon of goodness, being a queer character?
We essentially had what works so well for me about it is we had essentially 5 people who would be sort of in the LGBTQ umbrella in this film as major characters. I consider like all 5 of the good guys and the 2 bad guys, are all kind of major characters in different ways, right? Because you do have Renee and her ex-girlfriend, who's working with the DA, played by Ali Wong. Like that was, that's much more positive, even though their relationship isn't like working out. Like it's you don't get that it's because these are bad people. It's just like a thing that happened, right? Mm-hmm. And then of course you have like the homoeroticism of Black Mask and Zsasz, and then you also have Harley Quinn herself, who is in the comics is bisexual, and you don't get a lot of that because this is a movie not about relationships. This is a movie about her being out of relationships. But there is a moment in that opening crawl where you get to see like all of her failed relationships, and one of them was with a woman.
Right.
Which again, like they keep like Ryan Reynolds keeps like hinting that Deadpool's pansexual just like he is in the comics, but they don't actually do anything with it. And here they've already done something with it, even though it's a light like throwaway reference. It's canon. It's on screen. So it's a little better for me because we have 5 different people from 5 different parts of the LGBTQ plus umbrella, all with very different personalities, and that's what I want. I don't want us to only be paragons of virtue. Right. I don't want us to always be the villains. I just want us to be represented.
I totally understand that for sure. For me, this is a really light recommend. I mean, I don't think this is anything that like you have to rush out and see in theaters right now. But that said, there's not really a lot to go see in theaters right now necessarily. So this could be a pretty solid choice. If you want something fun to do on a Saturday while it's in theaters, maybe give this one a nod.
Yeah. So this is a great analogy to Rotten Tomatoes. If we were Rotten Tomatoes critics, this movie would be at 100% right now, even though we're all like just barely on the positive side of things. Yeah. This would be a 100% movie because we all gave it a, if you have to be on the good side or the bad side, we all kind of said, it's barely
that's
good.
That's why I don't like Rotten Tomatoes, because I feel like it's not black and white. You can't just say it's all good or it's all bad.
Yeah. Rotten Tomatoes works only as a kind of a quick reference item. It's not an indicator of absolute value. It is just sort of an amalgamation of multiple opinions that you can use for like quick glance. But the best way to use Rotten Tomatoes is to then scroll down and then just read the actual reviews of people that post.
Right.
I will mention before we get into spoilers. I think this movie's strength, and Brad, I know you're going to agree with me on this, is there were some quieter character moments in the movie amidst all of the rowdy action and over the top acting stuff that I think really worked between some of the characters. Rosie Perez's character comes into mind, and so does Harley Quinn and Cassandra Cain. Without going into spoilers, I think that relationship, even though I wasn't that in love with the portrayal of Cassandra Cain by that young actress, and I'm going to cut her slack because I think it was her first feature film performance, and I think she's got some potential. I just didn't. The character kind of laid flat for me, but I thought there were some moments with Harley Quinn's character that really resonated for me.
Yeah, definitely.
I know you like that.
Definitely like some of those quiet moments for sure. And when we get into spoilers, I think we can unpack those a little bit more. Yeah. So we'll put a pin in that particular grenade for now. Hamstrat says, "Does Harley Quinn?" I broke Will. Does Harley Quinn or the unelected virtue of ignorance do anything that I haven't seen in other superhero movies? Based on the trailers, I feel like I've seen this movie before.
I think that one thing that it does that you don't see a lot of in other superhero movies is that I think that the fight sequences for me felt a lot more fun than a lot of them because of just, again, sort of like they a lot of the sets do rely way more on like practical sets and practical effects as opposed to just like people on wires in front of a green screen. There's the two big fights, especially, like they're very well grounded in kind of, and so I think that's
in a practical way. Yeah,
they're very practical. This is a movie that, you know, when Margot Robbie went to make this movie, because she executive produced this thing because she thought, like, I want to do more with this character, but I really hated what happened in Suicide Squad, so she lobbied hard. She put up some of her own money. DC was okay with that, and she made sure that she got the director and the writer that she wanted for this. And I think because of that, this feels very much like, to me, even though it's like a weird superhero movie with a weird character that is owned by someone else, it's owned by DC and Warner Brothers and all of that, this feels a little bit more like a passion project than a lot of the other types of films of this type that come out, because of that, you know, that focus on vision. The small moments work, and also kind of the weird. This movie lets Gotham be weird again. Like, you know, Gotham in like the comics is like it's a weird town full of psychopaths, right? And we've had several, like the Nolan movies sort of like darken it up a little bit. Suicide Squad made it whatever. You know, it's felt like we haven't, like, Zack Snyder stuff washed all of the color out of it, but this feels a lot more like the Gotham that I know from the comics, while also still having room for characters and character moments to thrive within it. And I love that balance.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, because I didn't read a lot of these comics, practically none of them. But what it did bring to mind for me was like the old Batman TV show. Like the bright colors, and especially like the fight scenes. Now, there were no like pop up like pow stuff. None of that was happening. It wasn't quite as comic booky as that, but it still had that kind of vibe to it, where like people were, you know, you got the sense that characters were actually kind of hitting each other with stuff, and, you know, shooting. And this is not a spoiler, like shooting glitter guns. You know what I mean? Like goofy stuff like that in these fight and attack scenes. Now that I think about it, really kind of bring me back to the old Batman series.
Especially because most of the like enemies aren't like fighting with weapons. They're like going hand to hand against people with baseball bats.
And they have masks on and stuff. Yeah.
So I can see that.
It did. It's like when in the old Adam West Batman, there would always be a scene like about 2/3 of the way through where like several goons whose shirt would just say Goon 1, Goon 2 or something like that would come out, and then you'd have a fight scene. It reminded me a little bit of that, but just with like way better fight choreography.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, guys,
Good
I
point.
feel like we should spend at least a few minutes talking spoilers. Jim, I
Yeah.
know we need to kind of keep it short for you because you've been up
No,
since
it's
3
fine.
o'clock this
Fine.
morning.
Let's get into spoilers.
So we're going to go ahead and make that transition into spoilers for probably 10 minutes or so, and then we'll wrap things up for this week and be back next week. But spoilers for Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey are officially incoming. That is the 6th time I've said the new correct title. I believe it has stuck in my brain. I am rambling, though, right now for anybody who needs to hit the pause button if you're listening to the magic of digital tape delay via Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Or if you're listening live, we're not going to do plugs this week, so if you need to step away to avoid spoilers, no need to come back. But if you didn't listen to our MBP award show last week, maybe go listen to that instead if you're jonesing for more MBP. But spoilers are officially fair game. Here we go. Jim, you mentioned some of the quieter moments earlier, and one of the ones that really stood out for me was Harley Quinn and Cassandra Cain kind of commiserating and buddying up on the couch in Harley Quinn's apartment. I just loved sort of seeing this island, right? These two characters on a couch, kind of finding common ground and relating and sort of, gelling together in a way they hadn't yet before. And I actually, again, I wish we got more of that. Like, I love the Rosie Perez character so much as well. I would have loved to have seen just what the three of them in like a dedicated space, like in a car, like just the three of them could be like. Maybe we'll get that in another movie someday, but
maybe
it could have maybe generated more of those moments.
And I think that works because the whole movie, Harley Quinn is, her character is on 11 the whole movie, right? And in these scenes, in these quieter moments, she dials it down a little bit, and you get to kind of pull off this what seems like a facade into kind of maybe the core of this character. Oh God, what is her name? It's Harley Quinn. What was her real name?
Harley Quinzel.
Harlan Quinzel, yeah. So we get to see a little bit more of that, and I thought the two actors had quite a bit of chemistry. I guess mostly because it was a good change of pace at that time of the movie. I think to kind of tone it down a little bit. Let's see what these characters have. But yeah, I agree. I like that a lot.
Well, and that scene was very well placed within the movie too, because it feels like it happened at an organic spot. There was a similar scene where characters got to commiserate in Suicide Squad. I'm going to compare it to Suicide Squad.
When they're sitting at the bar, right?
Yeah, the bar scene in Suicide Squad, which is like there's action, action, action. The world's going to end. Oh, shit, we haven't caught up with our characters yet. Okay, now they're in a bar talking. Okay, now let's get back into the actions. Maybe a little better than that, but not much. And it feels very forced in. Here, it's not. I think that Harley Quinn is a character in the comics and in the video games and in all of the iterations and stuff who, when you look at all the different layers for, she's as much of like a weird madcap character. She's a complex character who is an incredibly intelligent woman who is a psychiatrist who, has her damn PhD and is like, brilliant at doing all of these things, who had this terrible relationship that she could not get out of despite herself, who was broken because of it, and who has also learned how to sort of both work with the system while also knowing that the system is kind of rigged against her for a lot of different reasons. There's a lot of stuff that goes into Harley, and it was really nice being able to see through the different scenes here to see all of those different things get to play out. We got to see her diagnosing people. We got to see her having this moment of bonding with someone who needed it. We got to see her like going like, hey, I can sort of exploit my madness and lean into it. And she could do all of those different things. I liked that a lot about her.
Yeah, I agree. I think we all kind of like that part of the movie. Did either of you guys think it was strange that one of the central plot things of the movie was like the bowel habits of like an underage character in the movie? Was that kind of weird to you? Like she swallows the diamond, and the movie's got us thinking about, okay, when is she gonna poop this out? Like To me, that was just a little. I don't know if the movie did that just to make me uncomfortable or what, but I was fairly uncomfortable, like having to think about it. And then I'm like, I'm getting mad at the movie. I was actually getting angry at the movie. Like, can't they fucking find an effective laxative in the whole fucking town of Gotham? Like, seriously.
Well, I think that it serves the purpose of sort of like getting like the easy out of the way, right? Because at that point, it's just like, oh, if all we have to do to not die is to hand this thing over, well, they could just hand the thing over, or they could do whatever it is, with it. But the fact that it's like literally in her stomach, and they say, okay, cool, we're just going to get it. We're just going to cut it out of her. Means that they have to protect her until it comes out the other way. I didn't have that same problem because I think that that's from like a comedy perspective, like that happens a lot in things like that. Like there's a lot of like,
the comedy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the dog eats the wedding ring and then you have to go outside and wait for it. It's scatological, but like, I don't think that it's like, it didn't make me uncomfortable, I guess.
All I have to say is, shite bright like a diamond.
Brad, so is that all you have to say?
That is all I have to say.
Brad. I mean, you know what? Now that one's sitting in my brain a little bit longer, I think the more I think about it, actually, the better it gets. So that one,
you could make a shite bright commercial. Hey, before we get too fired on that tangent, this movie had two of the best under the line performances of the year so far. That is best performance in a leading role by a breakfast sandwich.
Yes,
I will say that. I think that one's going to probably make it to my end of the year list.
Ooh,
and also,
hold on 1 second.
Best performance. What?
Can we add a best food moment for the MBP awards next year?
Oh
my God!
Yes.
Best food porn moment. There we go.
I like it.
I know after we watched Chef, like we were all like super excited about like Cuban sandwiches, and
I saw that category.
I saw a lot of people like posting like, "Well, went home and made an egg sandwich." Like I like a lot of people were inspired for food for that.
Absolutely, and I still see comments on Twitter about food moments in Chef.
Yeah.
That still to this day, several years later. The other performance is best performance by an exotic animal. We have
the hyena.
I thought the hyena in this movie was great, and I had to Google and figure out how they did it because it wasn't a real hyena.
What'd you find out?
They actually used a dog as a dog, and then they gave it the cat's treatment to put like hyena fur and teeth and stuff on it.
That would explain the human hands.
Yeah, but I gotta say it worked. I'm like, that's either the best CG I've ever seen on an animal, or that's a real hyena. And I don't think they'd have people putting their faces up to a real live hyena. I don't think that would work. But I love the scenes with the hyena. I'm an animal guy. What can I say?
I mean, it took me back to watching Serengeti with you, Jim.
I know, right? Serengeti. Yep, they got it right.
Hyena's blown out the window, all alone now.
They didn't kill the hyena, so that's good.
That's very good.
Yeah, he was there for some fun scenes. Wasn't a huge part of the movie, but whenever the hyena was on screen, he did something entertaining or was part of like a fun side joke or whatever it was. Like it worked.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Well, guys, any final thoughts on Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey? Lucky 7.
For anybody listening who I'm hearing some rumblings online about people organizing a rowdy screening of the Harley Quinn movie, Birds of Prey. Like rowdy meaning you can like yell at the screen or talk out loud and do all kinds of stuff. Maybe have breakfast sandwiches. That would be cool. But so yeah, look for a rowdy screening in your area. I think they're going to be coming.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'd do it. I would do that. It seems like this would be a fun one to have fun with. I think that the title change is sort of like the closing note on this one for me, at least. Like, I think that it's very easy to go into this with the expectations, looking at it, especially with its old title, that it's a Birds of Prey movie, and maybe be disappointed that there's not more of the Birds of Prey in it. That's a marketing issue, and they should have done a little bit better of their job of that. They rebranded it to Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey, to sort of like reset the expectation that this is a Harley Quinn movie. And I think that they really needed to have done that from the beginning.
Final thought: would you watch a pure Birds of Prey movie? Just the Birds of Prey.
Hard yes. Those three actresses, hard yes.
I'd watch it because if you'd watch it,
I'd watch it
with me. All right, then I'd watch it.
I guess we have our answer. All right. Well, we are gonna go ahead and wrap things up here. Poor Jim is exhausted, so we're gonna get him some dinner and then send him to bed. But it was so great to be able to.
I'm energized by this movie talk, so I could go another hour.
Oh, okay. So you want
talking about laxatives
a couple
and
more hours?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that case,
yeah. So stay tuned for Lax Chat.
Lax Chat.
We're a little lax on our laxative chat.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a real shitty segment.
It's pretty crappy. Anyway, all right. So join us next week for whatever the hell we're doing next week. We'll figure that out. In between now and then, though, let's talk about how folks can chat movies with us online. Jim, where can folks find you?
Talk movies with me, please, on Twitter. My handle is @JJPOutWest. Those are my initials with the 2 words out west, but put it all into 1 word, JJP Out West. And also find me on Facebook under my name, Jim Pugliafico.
All right. Excellent. And Will, where can folks find you?
Find me on Twitter @whateverco. Find me on Facebook, William Lindis. Send me a message first. Find me on letterboxd.com. If you track or review films there, I do too. Just look for William Lindis.
All right, excellent. And you can find me on Twitter @iBradPro, like iPad Pro, but iBrad, see, clever. If you're me, I think it's clever.
Mm-hmm.
You can also find me on Facebook. Just search for Brad Harris. I probably have Bear, Chub, Chaser friends in common with you. I just ask if you're going to send a friend invite. A, please do. Would love to become friends. But B, just send a message first so that I know you're not an ever increasingly clever bot trying to fish for my information.
Bot, beep, beep, beep.
I mean, when bots are offering dick pics, they're harder to resist now, right? But you try and see through that screen as much as you can. Folks, we will see you all next time. As always, thanks so much for tuning in. We love and adore you. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.